Good evening, everyone. Greetings from Flashcardz. You're welcome to another edition of Careers with different career sessions that we are hosting, and hopefully it's going to be useful for you in different ways. So Flashcards is an education platform for 8th to 10th standard students, and we are there to help you help you figure out research and help you along the way to find out what is best for you. And though that decision is completely yours, we are there to kind of assist you. I am Suniti Kulkarni, co-founder of Flashcards, and I welcome you, all of you, to this forum of careers with career sessions. Thank you, everyone. This is our 6th session of a unique program, which will give you a better understanding of various professions and avenues that are there. These sessions will give you an insight into the life of young professionals that we have invited. Today, we have two individuals, young professionals again in the government service, who are doing extremely well. You are going to hear what their take is on their jobs and how they're making an impact in the society, impact on the policies, and how you can go about doing it. So it'll give you a little bit of food for thought to see how you can go about it. It'll give you food for thought in doing research on it, talking to different people, and finding out if you have the aptitude for it. Ask all the questions that you want with our two panelists, and they're here to answer your questions and figure out, if you are really suited for this kind of a job. And we in this country really want young, talented individuals working for the government and making the difference in the course and in the future. So these sessions will actually give you an opportunity and time for you to figure out at the threshold of 11th standard, where you need to select your subjects, to find out what exactly your choices are, and if you can make an informed decision with all the information and research that you will be putting in, and make sure that you want where you want to be and get where you want to go. So relax, sit back, enjoy, and participate in these sessions. All our speakers are young, dynamic people who are going to click with the millennials. So over to you, Nitin.
Okay, thank you very much, Suniti. So my name is Nitin Kulkarni, and I am the second half of Flashcards with Suniti. And let me introduce, without further ado, our panelists to you first. So we have today with us, we are very excited to have today with us Agni Mitra. He's a nature lover, very passionate about nature and wildlife, and he is currently pursuing his passion in his job. He is the Regional Deputy Director, Eastern Region of Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, heading the operations of the Eastern Region for this organization. His objective is to minimize wildlife crime incidents in the Eastern region of India. Agni did BSc Zoology Honours from Presidency College, Kolkata, and an MSc in Environmental Management from FRI Dehradun in 2004. Agni has received several awards and honors for academic excellence and during his distinguished service as a civil servant. So, welcome. Our second guest today is Kaustubh Jog, who comes from a long family tradition of civil service, and he is in the Indian Revenue Service, Customs and Indirect Taxes since 2016. Currently, he is a Deputy Director in the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, which is an agency of the Union Government which looks after anti-smuggling and commercial frauds in the sphere of import-export. He loves meeting different kinds of people and the fact that his job contributes to nation building. Kaustubh did his BA and MA in history because he loved those subjects and also because he knew that they would help him clear the exam to become a civil servant. So to young distinguished civil servants and these are the people who make decisions that impact a lot of people, and we are really grateful to them to to be with us, because I know what my father was in the civil services, and I know how busy they are, and there are great demands on their time. So we are grateful to both of them to be here with us today to help our young audience with the decisions they make. So I'm going to kick on with the questions. So the first question I want to ask is to Agni. Is IAS and civil services. I think in general terms we know what those career choices are and are etc. But can you describe that in a little more detail? Just peel the onion a little bit for us. The options available under the civil services umbrella and what they entail.
Right. Of course, I'm going to share with you what I know about, but I think Kosa would be a better person to elaborate much more on that after I finish, because I have appeared and joined the Indian Forest Service. I have not appeared for the other services and exams, but what I understand is the civil service exam, which is the exam that UPSC conducts every year for the Indian Administrative Service, Indian Foreign Service, Police Service, Indian Revenue Service, and other services, which used to be 27 services. I think now it is reduced to 25. Now, so that is the 25 premier services, so to speak, that is conducted by the civil service examinations. Other UPSC exams for other government services is the Indian Forest Service exam. Then you have the Indian Engineering Service exam, and some similar other exams for the top government jobs in this country. Then there are other government organizations like the civil service recruitment boards, etc. The other options that are available. Some of them are also conducted by the UPSC, and then of course the state governments and then colleges, etc. I mean, given this opportunity, I just want to elaborate a little bit on the the Indian Forest Service, which is one of the 3 All India services, along with the Indian Administrative and the Indian Police Service. Of course, the forest officers, they are manning the forest department of the different states and the ministries of environment and forest in the government of India, and on deputation to some other agencies. Now, we also have the state forest services, the provincial forest services of each state, and you have the exams conducted by the different states, and then you can join in the rank of assistant conservator of forest in those states. You also have the opportunity to join as the range officers, forest range officers in different states. And then of course there are entries in the levels of forest guard, forester, etc. in the state forest departments. Beyond that, you have some other careers also available in the forest and wildlife sphere. So there are NGOs like the WWF, Worldwide Fund for Nature. So they have an Indian arm, and there are other similar NGOs working in the conservation sphere like WTI, Wildlife Trust of India, WPSI, Wildlife Protection Society, wildlife research. Some of them are focusing on legal issues like illegal poaching and hunting, trying to stop that. So there are different NGOs working on different spheres. There are NGOs like Wildlife SOS, which focuses on rescue of animals which are injured and in jeopardy. So there are these jobs available with the NGOs. If somebody is on that kind of bent, these will be good options for them. Beyond that, we also have the scientific career option with wildlife research. So we have agencies like the Wildlife Institute of India, which is an institute with the MOEF. And then you also have other agencies like the SACON in Coimbatore, Selim Ali Center for Ornithological Research probably. And then you have the IISc Bangalore, which has a ecological school of ecological sciences. So, and there are some of the universities which are pursuing wildlife oriented courses, like the Pondicherry University on marine wildlife and the like. So you have the opportunity to join as a research fellow and then join as a faculty in those universities and research organizations. So those were the options in the country. Beyond that, you have very good wildlife research options in the United States, in the Smithsonian Research Institute, and some of the other top universities in the US, which offer very good PhD options in wildlife and forestry research. You have the options in the European Union, especially the UK, which has a long history of wildlife conservation studies. For marine wildlife studies, you have universities in Australia, especially. I think it's called the Cook University, something like that. So you have the options here. In Germany, there are options on forestry studies. So these are the options available mostly in the forest administration and the forestry and wildlife sector. And I think I would have to leave it to Gustav to elaborate on the other services.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Agni sir. So just to add to what sir said, basically, see, civil servants are a group of officers senior enough to play an important role in decision making. Okay, constitution is what is a at the policy level. We also are interested in the implementation of these laws. Okay, so that is at the action level. Civil service is obviously, or two words which come to my mind immediately are government service or administration, right? So there is a difference between, say, working in the private sector, working with, say, an MNC like Microsoft, and working with the government, because there is a strong element of public service involved, okay, in which we need to be working for the people, okay. Just to elaborate, as sir said, there have been 25 services that are recruited through this examination. For instance, many of y'all are in Pune. You have the Pune Municipal Corporation, right? Now that will be headed by a commissioner level officer who would usually be drawn from the IAS. Many kids will identify with this because they come under, say, the education department, that will be headed by a secretary from, again, the IAS. Okay, diplomacy, right? International relations, protecting national interests abroad, model United Nations. All of this work is done by, say, the Indian Foreign Service. When it comes to law and order, protection of crime, as Nitin sir mentioned, my father, my grandfather, they were in a service called as the Indian Police Service. Okay, that recruitment also happens to the same examination. When it comes to, say, taxation, of course, there are two wings to this Indian Revenue Service. The wing which works with direct taxation is known as IRS IT, that is Indian Revenue Service Income Tax. And then my service, which is Indian Revenue Service, which looks after customs and indirect taxes. Okay. There are some other important areas, okay, because we are focused on public services or delivery of public services for the citizens, for people of this country. So I'm sure you all are all aware of post offices in India, which serve a large population. Now, the senior officers who man or head these organizations are coming from the Indian Postal Service. Okay. Similarly, India has a very vast rail network. So you have people from, now it is called as the Indian Railway Management Service, which looks after, say, traffic, signaling, passenger convenience, personnel, etc. So this is, I mean, broadly what I would describe as a, say, career in the civil services: administration, public service, different streams coming together to take care of public services and delivery for the citizens.
Okay, very wide swath. There's lots of different things. So let me come back to you, Kaustubh, and ask you about your work that you do on a day-to-day basis. What does a typical day look like in your work?
So, sir, as you mentioned, right now I'm a deputy director in the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. As the word intelligence suggests, there is an element of, how should I say, surveillance. Okay. My main job, or as you mentioned in the introduction, is that we focus on catching smugglers. Okay. And we look after or try to prevent commercial frauds. Right. So there is investigation element here. There is also an element of going out into the field to collect information so that we can better prevent these crimes from taking place. So basically, we look after smuggling of, say, gold, cigarettes, narcotics, electronic items, and that can happen, say, at the airport. So there's a very, I mean, almost out of a week, I'm there at the airport 3-4 days in a week, at odd hours. Other times I need to be talking to different kinds of people, cultivating sources, informers. There's a lot of networking that happens because we have to have a lot of interagency coordination, say, between my agency and the agency that Agnimitra sir heads, so that because crimes have a how should I say, transnational, translocal, and a trans feel to it. Okay. There is an element of desk job. There is file work. That is what defines government work, right? So we do that, but that is also kind of interesting because when we catch a smuggler, we need to process his arrest, we need to process his prosecution. There is administrative work also. And a large part of my day, sir, if I may share, it goes in analysis. Okay. We need to do a lot of data analysis to try and understand what are the trends that are going on, so that we are in a good position to, as I said, prevent these smuggling syndicates.
Sorry. Very interesting. Agni, tell us about a day in your life at work.
Right. So currently I'm with the Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. I'm in the Eastern region, posted in Kolkata. So at the Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, we are looking at minimizing wildlife crime in the country. And so I, on a day-to-day basis, interact with the forest officials of the states, the border guarding agencies like Sima Suraksha Bal, Border Security Force, and then ITBP, Assam Rifles, etc. in my region, Eastern region. And then we set up with them meetings, we set up with trainings with for their staff, so that if a wildlife crime happens, how to best process the case, and so that the court documents are perfect. We conduct trainings with them. We also gather intelligence, like the agency that Kaustav is working in. So we collect intelligence about wildlife poaching, wildlife smuggling, and then we do joint operations with the forest department, with the state police departments, etc. And then cases are booked with the courts, and there are arrests of wildlife criminals. So that keeps on happening. So I do travel a lot for these meetings and trainings all over my region. That is the Eastern region, 10 states of India in the Eastern region. Beyond that, I also had the chance to participate in many of the international forums and present the viewpoint of India on different wildlife crime issues, and take policy inputs from them and share with the government of India. So that is what my present job entails. However, I must say that this is not a very typical profile for a forest officer. Most of the forest officers are in the states, and they are in charges of different territories and often wildlife reserves, which goes by the name of wildlife sanctuaries and national parks. And before this posting, I was also with one of those areas from 2012 to 2015. I was a divisional forest officer of the Nicobar division, which is a very remote division, as you could imagine. Some of you might have visited the Andamans, but I'm quite sure that nobody among you would have visited the Nicobars. It is an extremely beautiful tropical island and full of forest, 90% plus forest area. So as a forest officer there, as like most forest officers in other states and in other divisions, my typical day would have been to first of all look at the administrative part, the file work, etc., with which we would process, the establishment work of the division, forest division, Things like sanctioning estimates and preparing estimates for plantations in forest, and for getting new boats for my division, I remember, and building new barracks for our staff and all that. So that is the office work part of it. Then you would have to, and of course there are monthly reportings and all that. Then you have to go and inspect the works, how the barrack construction is going on, how the plantations are going on. Then some of my staff would be patrolling areas in boats, in different vehicles, or even by foot, on foot. So have to quickly visit some of them and see how things are going, how the constructions are going. As part of my job, I had constructed an orchidarium in Great Nicobar Island. So we would look at how the work is progressing on field once or twice a week. So that is how things go. And also, had the very pleasant experience of diving on the coral reefs of Nicobars, along with the research fellows, going into treks in the forests of Nicobar with orchid biologists to look at different species at flowering. So those are really, the perks of being a forest officer. I had camped in, remote beaches of Nicobars, where there are hardly anybody from the civilized world who has set foot. So those are wonderful experiences that remains with me. And actually, before joining service, I was a research fellow of the Wildlife Institute of India. And in that capacity, I had worked in the tiger reserves of Kanha and Corbett. And some of those experience entails, I mean, I had to walk on foot in these tiger reserves, and few times I have encountered tigers while on foot. So that's, of course, the most thrilling experience that you can have in a forest. And tigers are large-hearted gentlemen, as Jim Corbett had put it, and none of them try to make a meal out of me. And mostly they are not happy with human presence. They dismiss you with a look of like I mean, they're irritated with human presence in forest. They dismiss you with a glance, and then they just go about their business. So yeah, that is how the life of a typical forest officer is. And I think my expectations from the service is more than fulfilled, have been more than fulfilled in the about 10 plus years of service that I've put in.
Wow. So we all, we all know, I think there is much more awareness today about wildlife conservation, about the environment and forests and so on. And people like Agni are at the forefront of making that happen, because we can talk all we want about conserving, about implementing, policies and all that, but someone's got to do it. And you are talking to someone who is at the forefront of making these things happen on the ground. And it's I can tell you, it's a really, I mean, I can imagine how tough this sort of thing would be, battling a lot of different sorts of people and so on. So great hearing those experiences. So let me come back to you, Agni, about since you were talking about your passion and all, let me take you back to your days in school as a teenager. And how did you come to this decision? How did you was it serendipity? How did you sort of make your way into this career? Did you make your mind early? Were you influenced by someone, or how did all this come about?
Right. So I would say that it was very evident to my parents and elders that I was a nature lover from a very young age. And I am born and brought up in the city of Kolkata, which is a densely populated city. And I would even look, whatever plants are available around, and even in, the city drains in search of small fishes, etc. And whenever I used to visit anywhere, so I was totally engrossed with nature. So then at the age of 10, I got admitted to the Ramakrishna Mission Ashram for my schooling. And it's a beautiful campus with a lot of swaths of mango orchards and large water bodies. And there's a lot of snakes and birds and everything. So that really fueled my passion for nature on one hand, but the school had a very strict routine, so it was not like I'm roaming around. But whatever chances I got, it furthered my interest in nature. And uh, I was also quite a literary person. I had a very keen interest in Bengali literature. So as most people would be aware, it is not customary to take up the humanities as subjects. You know, I can imagine Costa chose that with a lot of opposition, perhaps from his well-wishers. So I was thinking about that and all that. So, but in my later school class, let's say class 8 and all, I got a teacher. He's a legend actually in Calcutta and all. And he was our biology teacher, and it was mesmerizing the way he taught biology. So thereafter, I got really interested in biology and life sciences, and then putting 2 plus 2 together, I thought I would go for zoology honors, and I got admitted in Presidency College, and it was a really nice experience learning the ecological theories and understanding the basics of zoology. So during my bachelor's, I decided that I will pursue and career in wildlife conservation for India. And at that point of time, I had thought that it would be best to become a scientist, pursuing wildlife research. And so I tried to join the Wildlife Institute of India for my master's, but the master's program at Wildlife Institute of India is every alternate years. So it was not there in the year I had passed out from my BSc. So I joined the Forest Research Institute instead for environment management masters. It's also in Dehradun. Both the institutes are in Dehradun. And the last 6 months is research master's thesis. So I chose to do that with the Wildlife Institute of India, and I chose to do it in Kanha under the guidance of Dr. Jhala. And then that is my first taste of actual wildlife research in a premier tiger reserve of India. But very quickly in that research attempt, I found out that what I had imagined that scientists would be solving conservation problems is not exactly the situation in field, because the problems were largely managerial issues in wildlife conservation. Of course, there is a place for science, there is a place for data and information, but the basic factors, especially for tiger conservation, which I was mostly interested in, was known. The habitats were getting impacted by people and cattle moving in. There were conflict with local people, the corridors were vanishing, etc. And these issues would have to be managerially approached. These issues, of course, it needs a basic scientific approach, but these are managerial issues which needs to be tackled by the administration. So given that, I thought it would be prudent, I wanted to contribute directly and not only, provide some kind of direction and information to the department as a scientist and then sit back and see what they do. I wanted to do it myself. So I thought it would be a good way to approach it by trying to get into the Indian Forest Service. So I had appeared only in the Indian Forest Service, not in the Civil Service examination. And if I could not have cracked the Indian Forest Service, then I would have continued with my wildlife research career. So, but fortunately, I could get through. And that is how I have come into the Indian Forest Service.
Wow.
And mostly I have been posted in wildlife areas, and I have tried postings which is related to wildlife, and have enjoyed myself thoroughly in these postings, and hoping that I have contributed a little bit in those.
Fascinating how it all came together for you, Agni, and how you actually made conscious choices and decisions to get into an area where you could really make an impact in your area of passion. So fascinating story. Kaustubh, your journey, I mean, if we take you back to your school days and all, how did it all come together and how did you end up where you are?
Mm-hmm. So, sir, if I may say candidly, till I think 8th standard, which is the youngest lot with us today, I wanted to be a Formula One race driver. At that stage, you have all kinds of dreams and passion. But of course, very early, soon thereafter, I realized that, okay, I'm not good at this, or I won't be good at it, and I need to do something else or think about something else. But to be more serious, as I said, at home, the environment was of government service. Okay, so this everything to do with something which was official would interest me, at a very superficial level. So say the uniform or the khaki, as it were, officers, cars, emblems, power in the sense that people, to influence people, or to make a change, because I would see that people in distress, if somebody made a phone call on their behalf, used to have a solution, or they would get a solution. So somewhere I knew that I wanted to be in a job where I could help people, you know and pretty early, believe it or not. Okay, and another thing was that there was an interest in, if I mean, to make India great. We are from that time when we were still not taken very seriously. I've been very passionate about news. I used to watch news since what I was 11, 12. Okay, read about 5, 6 newspapers, watch a lot of news channels. So it was like a kind of a passion very early on, that I somehow I need to contribute, or somehow I need to be in a place which will take care of, or want to contribute to making India great. So this is what I wanted. And of course, since the environment at home was for this, I knew, sir, pretty much in school also, that one day I would want to give this exam, and I would want to be in the civil service, which I would take. Of course, it distilled and developed as I grew up. Foreign service is what was actually of great interest to me, if I may share with you all today. In fact, in class 11th, as soon as I went, I had taken up French as my second language, because I thought, that will help me when I eventually appear for the interview at the civil services examination stage, and in my career later. As we go along, we will discuss some of the way this exam is, that you have to of course, give your service preferences, but depending on vacancy and your grades or marks, you get the allotment. Okay, so as luck would have it, so to say, I didn't get foreign service, and I ended up with revenue service, but that's fine. So service choice came much later, but wanting to be in government came very, very early.
Okay, so lot of family influence that sort of influenced your thinking, and let me pick up that with you, Kaustubh. So since you broached that subject, both these exams, are perhaps the most the hardest exams in the country, the UPSC. I know people prepare for like years and years and years and years, and to get into these services. And so talk to us about the subject choices and the exam preparation, etc., that whole dynamic, if you can throw a little bit of light on it. How should students think about it? How did you think about it? What was your experience?
Right. So, sir, to start off with, one brilliant thing about the exam is that it's a great equalizer. Okay, just as it recruits people into, say, 25 services, it admits people from any and every stream under the sun. Okay, the minimum qualification or requirement that they have is that you need to be a graduate. Stream is not important. Okay, because of which, I have batchmates who are from all sorts of backgrounds. Okay, there are doctors, there are engineers, a lot of them actually. There are a lot that we have a few journalists with us. We have some from the management background. We have some who have done agriculture science. So the works. So in terms of your background, there isn't something specific that UPSC is looking out for. Having said that, I must also say that the exam pattern, okay, is kind of skewed, or emphasizes more on your general awareness, and on subjects which are under the humanities spectrum. So in that sense, history, political science, sociology, economics, international relations, these are subjects which do get covered, because at the second stage of the exam, which is known as the civil services mains exam, I'm sorry, we have 4 papers in general studies. Okay, which covers all these fields. As I said, there is one paper on, say, ethics integrity, which is very interesting. In fact, we can talk about that on some other day. And the same thing follows even for the preliminary exam, which is the first round, okay, where one paper is again called as a general studies paper, right? So in that sense, taking humanities or liberal arts gives you a little bit of an advantage, in the sense that when my friends started preparing for this exam, say after their post graduation, or after having worked for a few years, I had almost done all these papers or all these subjects in my junior college itself, or in my 11th and 12th. Okay, so that is what I would say, that humanities has an advantage, but it's not a condition, pre-necessary condition, that is what is going to get you, fetch you very good marks.
So Agni, what about your experience, and tell us a little bit about coaching classes and the preparation required, etc. also.
Right. So at the very onset, because looking at our audience, who I suppose is mostly from class 8 and 10 and onwards, the first thing I want to say here, that especially to the parents, that please leave the decision of whether your child wants to be a civil servant or not to him or her. Okay. So because somebody might want to be a brilliant footballer or musician, you don't know. And these days it's not that you cannot make a living out of being a musician or a footballer or anything else, and maybe a journalist or who knows what. So the first advice, career advice, whenever anybody approaches me, that I give is, like myself, you should choose a career in your area of interest, in your area of passion. Then work really becomes hobby, you can say, or a pursuit of pleasure, really. So the first advice I would say, that class 8 or 10 is too early to make a final career choice. So you can choose the broad areas. The students can choose the broad areas they want to study, humanities or commerce or science. And then as you go up in the classes, maybe in the graduation, if you want to study science, you study science, and then you find out what can work for you, what you feel interested in, and then you take it forward from there. If in your bachelor's or master's, during master, you feel that civil service is your cup of tea, and be also reminded that there are very many other remunerative options. So it's not something that that you should come for earning. You should come in it for kind of, as Kaustubh said, solving people's problems, and giving solutions to problems with quite limited resources, actually, in most cases. So if that kind of things excite you, if that kind of things, like Kaustubh said, if your interest is in making India great, so then civil service is your cup of tea.
Yeah,
So,
I guess.
yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Agni. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay. So that is my first advice, that how, civil service, to appear for it or not, to try for it or not, should be something that should be, that should born out of the love for service for the people, etc. So, and that is because the preparation is quite an exhaustive and dedicated effort. You cannot expect to clear it in your first attempt. Okay, there are four, I think now 6 attempts for general. In my time it was 4 for general categories and more for other categories. Now second, third attempt is normally when people clear it, and so that would be 2 to 3 years minimum of very concentrated effort, and that would be 2 to 3 best and most productive years of your life in your 20s. Okay, so, and it's a huge risk, because only a minuscule percentage, maybe less than 0.1%, something like that, gets selected. Okay, so my first advice would be to have a backup plan, that if I don't succeed in this, then what can I fall back on? Okay, so if you have that in place, then you can prepare in peace, so to speak, and then you can give a full shot at what you can do in the civil services. Thereafter, you should have a good guidance, and in my case, although I did not avail any coaching, I had the best of the guides, which were the probationers in the Indian Forest Service who have just cleared the exam. So they have just cleared the exam 1 or 2 years back. And so they had the best idea of how to clear the exam, and they had guided me. So that was a privilege, and I had prepared as per their advice. So that is one thing. You need to have the best kind of guidance, because otherwise the most sincere of efforts, if the direction is not correct, is not going to give you the intended results. So that is my first advice, that you should go for people, especially if you can find somebody who has cleared recently, then he would be the best guide that you can get. After that, the amount of study, etc., is quite exhaustive. Minimum very thorough study, few hours a day, and sustained over months and years. And the study, I mean, I want to refer to a book here, which I had benefited from, and which I have referred to a lot of people who are serious about clearing any exams, not only the civil services, etc. There's a book called Study Smarter, Not Harder, by Kevin Paul. It is Jaico Publishers. I'm not associated with the book or the publishers in any way, but I find it really, really good. And the techniques of preparation that are given there, the amount of preparation that goes into before sitting down to study, and to make the 5-6 hours that you're studying every day the most productive. That book is, I find it is very good, and it really concretizes the theories and the principles of how to prepare for a competitive exam. So I would request everybody to go through it. Beyond that, I think the nitty-gritties of which subject, what references to study, that is the domain of a different discussion. So, but what I want to repeat here, that it really requires very dedicated and extended preparations, at least few hours a day for years, actually. So yeah, so that is something. If you are not ready to if you don't have a burning love for civil services, or a burning desire to be part of the administration, you will not be able to probably sustain that. So yeah, so that is my inputs on how to prepare.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. That's great. Now I just want to spend 2-3 minutes on this this topic. That's a question in the minds of many people. I think about the civil services, we have a general idea, but I'd still like you to throw a little bit of light on it. And I'll start with you, Agni. About, can you make a good living? I mean, what sort of do people in the civil services enjoy a good lifestyle? What are the perks associated with this, and so on? So just that quality of life conversation. So if you very quickly, if
Yes,
you can
surely.
talk to that.
So in our categories, in the All India Services, Central Services, etc., these are the highest grades of the civil services. And I do feel that the salary, when it is, which might be lower when you compare to very high ranking CEOs of organizations, etc., it is still very high. And with the recessions of the 90s and all that, I think only a very thin percentage of people in the private firms would be getting salaries that we get after 10 to 13 years of seniority. So that is the first thing. The other thing is about the perks and all. So senior officers get very good government accommodations, and in the poshest localities of the cities, South Mumbai, for instance, and in other areas. So after certain seniority, you get driven by a driver in a government car. You stay in a very plush, comfortable government bungalows and all that. So that kind of lifestyle, if you want to achieve through in being in private service, that would be very expensive, and you have to be at the very top-notch senior level. So that is one thing. And I think if you manage your finances properly, you can save enough for a retirement. The government takes care of your health issues. So I think, yes, of course, you can make a decent living if you are financially prudent, and the service experience and the lifestyle is really top-notch in the senior civil services.
Anything to add to that, Kaustubh?
Sir, I'd just like to say that things have improved. I mean, when my father was around, I remember his salary, and it was a real pinch. Okay, but as things have gone by, it has improved, and it is definitely more comfortable. So the trade-off, because there has been a serious thinking in the government, right? That this was one of the reasons why people were, say, moving to corruption or nepotism, was that government servants usually were not very well paid. It has undergone some change, and it is fairly good. And as sir said, it's inversely proportional to your need. I must warn everybody here. Okay, so when you are at younger and you've just joined and your demands are a little more, I mean, you need more money and you need a bigger house and whatever, but you don't get it. But as you go up, when your kids are not with you and they're studying somewhere else, you'll end up with a 7 bedroom flat in, as sir said, in the plush locality of Delhi. But that's fine. We're here for public service, as I said. But you do get taken care of. That's fine.
Brilliant. So thank you very much for some very interesting insights. So I have opened the chat window for everyone. If you would like to ask questions of our panelists, please type them in the chat window and we'll take as many as we can in the available time. Please just type out your question. The chat window is open. Wow, Agni, that was a very interesting story. Walking barefoot in the forests with tigers. Wow. Suniti, you are on mute.
Yeah, we have a question from Pathvi. So what do you mean by forest crimes?
Okay, so in the forest, there are two basic categories of crime, three actually basic categories of crime. One is the illegal cutting of the trees. Okay, so you cut down the trees and sell illegally and sell them. So that is an offense in the Indian Forest Act. So that is one crime, that you cut down the trees. The other is that illegal hunting of animals. Okay, so that is the offense under the Wildlife Protection Act. So you hunt down protected wildlife, you can be prosecuted for that. The other thing is encroachment on forest land. The Forest Department of the different states of India is the custodian of about 23% of the Indian territory. So encroaching upon forest land is another kind of offense. So that is also to be prosecuted under law. So these are the major three types of forest crime, that is cutting down of timber illegally, killing wildlife, and then encroaching on forest land. So these are the forest crimes generally.
Okay. Is it compulsory to have a degree to give the civil services examination?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. You need to be 21 and you need to have a graduation degree from university in India. Okay.
Yeah. And I think there are classes which actually guide the students in preparing for the exams, right? So, Kaustubh?
Yes, ma'am. So I presume you're talking about coaching institute?
Yes.
Yes. So you have coaching institutes. Earlier, like when Agni sir or I were preparing, Delhi was really the hub for these things, and in that also couple of areas, Mukherjee Nagar or Karol Bagh and whatever. But now things have moved. Okay, so just as the demand for the exam has democratized and has covered geographical areas, these coaching hubs have moved to Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, even Kolkata, Mumbai. So they are all over the place, and you need not even go to a coaching class, as sir said, because today the resources are so good online. Say a lot of training channels, a lot of good videos on YouTube, a lot of study material available online, that you need not join. But my suggestion is you join so that you are in touch with the subject. Okay, so that you know what you are working towards, so that you have a good peer group with you which keeps pushing you. As Agni sir said, unless you have some kind of a burning desire from inside and a good competitive environment around you, it is really difficult. He had the probationers to look up to or to work with, but not many of us are going to have access to them. So coaching is something that you can do, finish it off in your last year of college or just first year of your preparation. But when you start preparing, it's all on your own. Okay, so coaching is going to be just about 20-30% of your preparation. 70% is what you have absorbed, what you are able to analyze, and what you are able to put down on paper.
Thanks, Kaustubh. So we have a question from Ganesh. Are maths and science given more weightage in the civil services exam?
I'll just quickly respond and then leave it to Kaustubh. So what I see that as Kaustubh was saying, some of the humanities streams, the subjects have more weightage in the civil service exam, as I understand. But in the recent years, let's say in the last 7-8 years, I do see people from engineering and maths and science backgrounds, the percentage of them clearing the services are very, very high. But UPSC changes the patterns over time. So this might not stay, but the last 7-8 years, there has been very large percentage of selections from science backgrounds. Please, Kaustubh.
Yes. So just to quickly add, this is because, at the first level of the exam, they had introduced a paper called as Civil Services Aptitude Test. Okay. This was different from the general studies paper. And this used to give a lot of weightage to mathematics, logical reasoning, quantitative aptitude. Now, these were subjects that engineers or, people with a background in maths used to find very easy to crack. And, that would then allow them to write the next stage of the exam. So because of which we ended up seeing a lot of engineers finally clearing the exam, right? So that is at the preliminary stage, but this has changed now, and the weightage has again gone back to general studies. Maths in the mains paper, yes, you have to take an optional paper. I had taken history. For forest service, it's different. So many of my friends had taken maths optional, and it is scoring because it is very focused and there cannot be anything subjective about it. But UPSC catches you. Okay, so there is nothing fixed about what is happening. These trends come and go, so better is that you prepare all subjects well.
Okay, thanks, Kaustubh. And I'm not sure if we have shared the fact that Kaustubh is one of the younger lot in civil services. You entered in 2016, right, Kaustubh?
16. That's right. That's right, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Simran has this question: what age can you start civil service? Simran, do you mean what age can you enter civil service as the minimum age? I think so. So if you can take that up,
21 years for
21.
Civil service examination, forest service examination, UPSC examination. For certain entries in the military, there are lower age.
Yes.
So you can actually start working towards it when you enter college, probably after 12th standard. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a smart thing to do.
Start working towards it, and
yes, because ma'am, if I may add, the only advantage that has is that if you end up getting selected at say 22 or 23, you have a longer span of government service with you. So whatever you have come with, you are able to implement that for a longer period. And second is it helps you with your promotions. Okay, so chances are that you'll end up going right at the top of your service or your department, which say you may not have when you join a little later. Okay, and if at this moment, sir, if I can suo moto take a question or address an issue, should you be doing say a post graduation? My view is ideally you should do it. It helps with the backup also, and it also gives you the required subject or domain knowledge that is needed. So you can start preparing. You can do a post graduation and then come to the exam, but that is at 23. Or you start at 21 and you do a post-graduation alongside your preparation. Agni, sir?
Yes, certainly. I also think that post-graduation, as I had emphasized on the backup plan, is a necessary part of that. So if you have any kind of alternative career, the masters would really help in that. Otherwise, you have to go back to some kind of business or something. So masters is necessary, and the two scenarios Kaustubh detailed. I think the second scenario is what I would say is better, that you prepare alongside your masters. It is often, if you have the same subjects in the masters and in bachelors, then masters are not that difficult. So you should prepare along with your masters and have a master's degree and then appear for the civil services.
So there's an so most of you have been through all our sessions, the previous sessions, and there's an underlying message in all our sessions that, start work, you need to do your masters. Everyone has been saying the same thing. Yeah. So.
So I had one quick question for both of you. Is that, so what are the challenges and frustrations of your jobs?
Yeah, so
that you have to overcome on a regular basis. Yeah, they are there in every walk of life, but in yours, what are those?
certainly. So I will go first. So you are aware that India is a very complex country, and there are, as you had said, we take decisions, and so in a really complex country like India, decisions have to be taken considering so many factors. The welfare of the people and the land, of course, that is the paramount concern. But beyond that, there are interest groups, lobbies. There are, of course, political agenda, other bona fide interest, vested interests, and the costs and benefits, the resources that we have. So all those factors come into play on a day-to-day basis when we take decisions. So the challenge, I think, being in a country like India, first and foremost, is resources. So all of our departments, I think, are short of manpower. All of them are short of resources. I would say 80% plus of the departments. And then trying to achieve something which is unachievable, the kind of the range of mandate that is given to you, and the wherewithal that is with you is so disparate. So that is the frustration that most of us, I think, faces on a day-to-day basis, that so we pick and choose what we want to do, and that is only and not always we are sure of that whether we are having a significant impact on what we are supposed to have a significant impact on. So that's the frustration that people deal with. And the other thing that I really want to point out is that sometimes the domain expertise is not there with people who take decisions. That is something which is there in India, and not always the domain expertise is available to take a decision. So you have to take a decision based on your administrative experience and all that. So that is something which does not always steer the department in the correct direction. So that is another challenge which I have faced in my career mostly. So those are the major things that I would list.
Kaustubh, anything to add to that?
Yes, and interesting that, my point is also going to revolve around decision making, is that often in government, decision making ends up being slow. One of the reasons could be that we end up consulting so many stakeholders, but I don't know, there are different reasons for it. But in private, decisions are taken very fast, and sometimes that is for the good of the organization, whereas in government it can get a little frustrating when things take time. Okay. And another thing is that you don't have tremendous control over the people you work with, or who work for you, or who you are under. I mean, that recruitment is not in your hands. So you get you get all sorts of people who are working for you. So it's difficult sometimes to get work out of people who are not interested, or who are not really good, or as sir said, who don't have domain knowledge, but they are there. So what do you do with them? Those are my two frustrations that I deal with.
Yeah, and in spite of that, I mean, the kinds of things that get delivered. I mean, I know that currently the government is implementing a tap in every home scheme, and I mean, I can't imagine what a humongous impact that initiative will have in changing the lives of people. 100% electrification, and these kinds of things, tiger conservation, the revenue, like Kaustubh, we have the GST revenues have gone up multiple fold. So you play a huge role in preventing those revenue leakages, and once those resources are in, they can then be deployed to do all of these high impact activities. So the scale and scope of what you do is just it's mind-boggling, and particularly in a country like India. So it's quite exciting to be in your position, I suppose, if you have a passion for those kinds of huge change initiatives. Yeah. So Suniti, do we have any other questions, or just?
Yeah, no other
No.
questions. So we
Okay.
can actually,
So
wind
I
up.
would like to thank Kaustubh and Agni very much for sparing their valuable time for us, and giving us these wonderful insights, and an inside look into what civil servants really do, what their lives look like, and what their challenges are, what their passions are, and so on. And just amazing to talk to two bright young men who are making a big difference. So thank you very much, both of you, for being here with us today.
Entirely my pleasure. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure. And we are trying to get a lady civil servant next time.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you,
We'll do
Kaustubh.
that. Kaustubh
Yeah.
is going to help us do that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and all of you too, both of you, all the very best in accomplishing your mission and beyond. And to all our students and parents who were with us today, listening to Kaustubh and Agni, thank you very much for being here, and all the very best to you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Bye. Bye.